Okay. Hi, everyone. It's Sarithkin and Antir, and I'm here with Duke Sven Gunnarsson, who lives in Aethelmearc now, but has also reigned in Drachenwald 5 times, I think, if I counted right. And he's also been the Prince of Nordmark, and also you just served as King of Aethelmearc, right?
Yeah, a year ago,
A
roughly.
year ago. Okay. Well, this is part of my Duke challenge. I think you're number 61, which is cool. I've talked to a lot of people. So you've watched these before, and you know that we sort of start with your origin story, like where you found the SDA and when. And so if you want to start there, that would be great.
Yep. So basically, my cousin is a year younger than me, and we were playing role-playing games when we were teenagers. And then just before I turned 18, a guy in the local group that he lived in contacted him, or he saw this guy having armor on, and it was very interesting. So we approached him, and that was Nicholas de Montnord, who showed us the rope in the list a bit. So we were having fighter practice. It was the only thing we did the first year, I think. And then started slowly going to events, and then it spiraled out of control after that.
Did you do anything like fighting before you found the SCA?
No.
No.
I played soccer. That was what I did.
So were you hooked right away?
Yes.
Okay. What did you like most about it?
In the beginning, it was the fighting, just as a testing your skill, kind of that side of it. And then slowly it became more about the friends and the other things like arts and science and traveling. And then now it is mostly about the traveling and the meeting people.
Yeah, that's the fun part. When you started fighting, did you start Sword and Shield?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, it was probably Sword and Shield the first couple of times.
Okay.
But it soon changed to be two sword and two-hand swords and pole arms mostly.
Is that what your main weapon forms are?
No, it's my left hand stick, like a spear, and then a sword in the right hand. That's my main one. I just can't get really good at the shield work, so I'm trying, but that's been kind of a focus for the last couple of years, trying to get better at shield finally, because I just never got it. But now I've started refocusing again, so I think I'm gonna go back to the two-hand sword because that's the most fun. And also the one that keeps me mobile, because I tend to get more static as the years pass. I don't move as much, and I really enjoy a fluid moving fighting style.
So when you say like two-hand sword, you mean like great sword or bastard sword, something like that?
More bastard sword, yeah, 4 foot basically.
Cool. So how long did it take for you to get your own armor together?
A week maybe, I don't know.
Oh really? That's
yeah,
fast, huh?
So when we started, it was only, we didn't have any loaner gear or anything. So we immediately, after we understood what kind of things we needed, started building our helmets, because that was the problem. So my cousin built his shop at school. Some friends welded it for him, and I built it in my parents' garage. So just slammed something together with rivets. And then all the rest was just a roll of duct tape and a roll of closed cell foam, and then tape a lot each fighter practice.
Nice.
It was a little fluid. It didn't really use rattan in the beginning, I think. It just wooden hafts or whatever. It was very basic the first couple of times, but then slowly it built up into a much more elaborate kit. So
okay. So when did you said it took you about a year to find an event?
Yeah, I think it was about a year.
So, and what was your first event?
It was the city of Skara in Sweden was celebrating their 1,000-year celebration of being a city. That was 1986, I think, or 1987, one of the two. Probably 1987, yeah.
And was there a demo or something there?
Exactly. It was a big demo and was a feast in the evening. So I went there, and I basically sat under a tree and looked at everybody, because I was very shy back then. So I just watched and had fun with that, put on armor and fought a little, and then ate the feast and stayed there for the night, and then drove home the day after. So.
Okay. Did you choose a persona that early?
I never really had a proper persona. I haven't developed it so much, but the most I have is Sven Gunnarsson. I'm from middle part of Sweden. I traveled around to Russia and to England with the Vikings in 980, 960, something along there, before Burka burnt up, kind of. That's like the gist of it. And then I've never done more with it.
So,
and I thoroughly enjoy dressing up in Landsknecht and 14th century clothes too. So I'm definitely not hooked on any specific period.
Yeah, well, it's fun to explore the different clothes too.
Yeah.
So after that first event, did you start going to fighting events? Did you realize that there was like a royalty structure?
Yeah, no, the royalty structure I didn't realize. And back then, Nordmark, which is Sweden, was, I think it was a barony maybe, but the king and queen were in East Kingdom, so they never showed up, or very seldom. And the prince and princess of the European group, Drachenwald, were down in Germany most of the time, so we barely ever saw any outsiders. So it was, yeah, so I didn't really get that part.
Okay.
There's many funny stories about that, so yeah.
Tell us some funny stories.
Well, I think that one of the most fantastic things is that I early on decided that I was going to say no to any awards because I thought it was silly. I didn't want any awards. So, and then after 2 years, I got called in to get an award of arms, and of course I couldn't say no. So
right.
now I have them all, kind of. It's like slippery slope. Once you say yes to one, you can't say no to the next one.
I was going to say you have. I mean, you're a quadruple peer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay. When did you start traveling out of Sweden for events?
Pretty early on. I think year 2 we started driving down to Germany a couple of times a year. Or I mean, during that year we went down once, I think, and then the year after. So it was pretty early on, and that's yeah. And then I kept that up. Pensick 1992 was my first Pensick.
Okay. Wow.
Then I've been back quite regularly, and the last 10, I think, at least 12 or more than that. I don't know, a lot of them.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
Well, that's really cool. So what did you like about Pensick when you first came out? I mean, because that's quite a journey for you.
Yeah, it was very different from all the Drachenwald events, but I would say that it was the non-stop partying during the nights and then the fighting during the days. That's 2 weeks of being awake, basically.
That's funny. So when did you decide to get serious with your fighting?
Probably after 4 years, I would say. Like 1992 was after that Pensick, then it felt like everything started clicking a little. Because before then I was not so good, but then it got better. So
yeah. What did you do to train?
I went to fighter practice every week, and I had some pel work at home, basically, but it wasn't that much. I've never been much for the several times a week practicing. I've hardly ever done that. I either go to an event and fight, or I go to fighter practice. That's like my normal style. And I think mental, that's where it sits. It's figuring out how you do things, and you don't have to have armor on to do that. So a lot of it is thinking in your head about like combinations and things. And then to me, all fighting, all event fighting and all practicing is only practice until you get to a crown tournament. That's the only fighting occasion that I take seriously. Everything else is just I'm working on things. Usually something silly like trying to get a blow to land in a certain way. So then I spend the whole day fighting people and just doing one thing, see what happens.
Even in tournaments that aren't crown, you're still working on things?
Yeah, I don't take any serious.
Okay. How do you shift your mindset then for a crown?
In the beginning, I had to have like a ritual. I had headphones on and heavy metal music in my ears and walked around by myself around the list and just very much try to empty my head and get into the zone for the fighting. But last 10 years, I've gotten much better at just switching. I just put on my stuff and walk in there. I still try to do a bit of the whole mental game before crown tournament, then where I really focus on it, but it's hard to find time for it. And Aethelmearc's tradition of the big processions and everything, it takes so much time that my head gets completely upside down during that. So I have to like refocus again after that.
Yeah, it's hard. Processional is a big letdown after your warm-ups.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, we usually have time after the procession to warm up again. So it works. And I really like the processions. I think that's an important part, the spectacle of it.
Definitely. So you got knighted in 93, so that was like a year after your first Pennsic?
Yes.
Okay. And were you surprised when you got knighted? Was it a surprise?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay. Can you tell us the story of your knighting?
Not really. It's just a well, it was actually I think it was a crown tournament, I think, that we organized. Me and my ex-wife were autocrating it. So it was a bit of a hassle to then be locked into a room the whole Friday evening and talk to people instead of being autocrat. But it all worked out fine, and it's yeah.
Okay.
If I had to say something, it would be that I would say that I was probably knighted for my melee skills way more than my single fighting, because I couldn't win anything back then. I think I had technique and things perhaps, but it just never worked when I went into the list in a single situation. But on the melee field, I felt that I could hold my own. So.
Okay, and in 93 was Drachenwald already a kingdom?
Yes, we became a kingdom in June 93, and then I was knighted in October 93. So.
Oh, okay. So were you one of the first knights made when it was a kingdom?
Yeah, the third, I think.
The third?
Yeah.
Cool. I think it's really interesting that you feel like you got knighted for your melee skills, because I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that.
No, it's yeah. It cannot have been anything else.
All right. Well, when did you decide that you wanted to hone your tourney skills and get better at one-on-one combat?
I would say it was before Drachenwald's first crown tournament, because after I came back from Pennsic in 92 and really got into more of the bigger game, I had already started taking up a little bit of understanding of how the whole SCA works before then, but that opened my eyes a bit. So then when I came back and we planned for the first crown tournament, we practiced rigorously for that. Me and Duke Prothal, we were both very, very hot sticks. We thought we were going into the tournament with two swords, and we're gonna win. One of us was gonna be the winner. That was like our mindset basically. And then, yeah, I was out immediately. That didn't work.
Did you guys live close to each other so you could train together?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. We used to practice together a lot. So.
And would you do stuff outside of regular fight practice together, like drills and? Yeah. What kind of drills would you guys do?
Oh, you said drills. Okay. No. There was a lot of footwork, I would say. I mean, there was a lot of thinking about how you would advance and how you take that final little gap into your opponent, and we were trying hard to incorporate, at least as far as I remember it, to get the defense to come natural from your offense. So like when you hit something, you should also have a block in there, and thinking about those kind of things. So there was a lot of slow work without armor, basically, a lot of that kind of stuff.
Cool. And so did you fight in all of the crowns before you won your first one?
Almost all of them. I mean, I might have missed one or two, but most of them. So. And
did it take you a while to find your headspace for single tournament?
Yeah, definitely. When I won in 98, it was a miracle, but that kind of, well, that in itself then unlocked the idea that I can do this.
Right.
So right. It's like I didn't really think I could win that one, but then it was a very small list, and then I managed to somehow win it, and then after that everything kind of clicked more in place. So I think that's an important thing, and like a lesson for people, is that sometimes you need that success to realize where you're at or how it works. So, and then of course that's a little bit random, because you can't force a success.
Right.
It will happen when it happens.
Right. And I think, going into that crown thinking that you didn't have a chance probably took some of the pressure off of you, so that you could fight the way you needed to.
Yeah.
For people that aren't familiar with Drachenwald crowns, is there a cultural way that they're usually run?
I would say yes, but when you then, of course, ask how, then I'm like, I don't remember really. I mean, it's generally not any requirements on weapon forms. You can enter with whatever you want. But I would say that I think there's round robin. They are usually round robins.
Okay. And how many people are usually vying for the crown?
I'd say on average, I would say maybe 10. And it goes from 5 on the really sad ones to 25 on the really good ones. But it's to a very large extent due to the fact that you have to rule the whole of Europe, and it takes a lot of travel and it's expensive. So it's not something everybody can do.
Right. And does the number of people that enter the list sort of fluctuate with where where the list is held?
Absolutely, I would say. Yeah.
Okay.
So if it's in Sweden, Sweden has a large proportion of the heavy fighters in Europe, so that's where you get the big lists. And then if it's in England or Finland, it depends a little on what time it is and how it all works out, if it becomes a big one or not. But sometimes they're slightly smaller.
Okay. So the first crown that you won, did it feel different that day? Like, and I mean, obviously winning feels different, but when you look back through the list, did it feel different for you?
Yeah, I think it was basically that it started clicking what I was doing, and by then I had swapped over to my style. We call it Christians. It's a two-hand sword upside down in the left hand and a sword in the right hand. So and that style was very much it just fits me so well, because you have a rather good defense with this big stick in the way, but you don't have to do much with it because my left is almost limp. I can't really do much. I tried sometimes to swap the sword to the left hand and have a shield in the right hand. It just does not work. So
is that from an injury or?
No, it's just inability. It's like extreme handedness.
So does the upside down sword have a spike on the end? Is there like a button?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So that was what we used back then. But now I've swapped into instead having a spear, I call it. So just a straight stick with one pokey in one end. It's a little harder, but it's easier to travel with. So that's why I've swapped to it.
That's cool.
So, yeah. Because this two-hand sword, if you have a big quillion, then it blocks your arm. So anything from above will hit the quillion, not your arm. While the stick doesn't have that advantage. So.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay. So tell me about your first reign. Like in Drachenwald, do you step up the same day that you win crown, or do you guys actually have a coronation after? Or
yeah, we have a 3-month period of being prince and princess. So after that win, then we stepped up in the end of June. The win was in March, April, and then I don't know. We traveled around Europe and did things like you do.
Well, were you surprised at like anything your first reign? Like, was there something unexpected from reigning that you?
I had already been involved tightly in reigns before then, so I had I kind of knew everything that was going to happen, so it was no surprise. Maybe surprise could be that it's interesting how people act differently when you're royalty. It's like the same person who said something yesterday, suddenly the next day doesn't say the same thing. It's interesting, but it's kind of natural, I think.
Yeah. What was your favorite part about reigning the first time?
I think it was the feeling of making people happy and be able to like do that part. But I was extremely shy back then, so I had so much stage fright. So it went away after that reign. I would say that reign probably took that away from me or fixed that problem. So since then, I've been much more relaxed talking to people. But before then, I had problems standing up in front of a crowd and talk.
So just because I'm curious, do you guys have like interpreters in your courts because everybody speaks different languages, or do you have a main language that you use?
Yeah, the kingdom courts are usually in English, and the populace will then understand as they understand. Some not, some do.
Okay.
If we have court in, say, Finland, and that's a barony, and they have a baronial court, they will hold their court in Finnish. And if I'm lucky, I have a Finnish person next to me who can whisper in my ear what's going on. Okay. Otherwise, I'm sitting there and listening to their fantastic language and smiling to myself. And Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. So what made you want to reign more than twice?
That's a good question. I'd say that it's probably it's so many factors, but one thing is that I felt that I felt I was good at it.
Okay.
And I had a lot of fun doing it. And so I kind of see it as it's one position where you can serve the society by being approachable and kind and just try your best to unite the kingdom all the time and be that leader figurehead. And I felt so happy doing that, and I could do it. So then I just joined more tournaments. So
Cool. That's cool. So you're a Laurel. What's your art form?
I got laurel for armor making. I made
Okay.
helmet and gauntlets and other metal pieces mostly. I dabble in leather too, but that's. And I usually say that it was a munition grade armoring because it was a lot, but not perhaps the fanciest. So.
Okay. Do you still do that?
Yes and no. I theoretically do it. I have metal in my basement and I have all tools and things, but I just never go down there and do anything. So I'm very, very lazy right now.
And did you get into armoring just as sort of a necessity because you had to make your first suit and you just kept doing it? Okay.
Absolutely. And then after that, there was I wanted people to fight with, so I made armor for them and sold at a very cheap price, and then just kept doing that. So I made a lot.
Were you squired to someone?
Yes, I was squired to Sean Connor McQuaid, who now lives over in Atlanta. And he's an American and he lived in Germany at that time. And I got squired it was a very short period in August. So I was squire for 2 months.
I was going to say, how did the long distance relationship work? But it was only 2 months. So
yeah, I don't know. It worked fine. I mean, I enjoyed it in many ways, but at the same time, I never had the time to develop the squire relationship because it takes more than 2 months.
Right. Do you have squires?
I have 2, yes.
Okay. Two the whole time or just 2 now?
2 now.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't had many squires. I had 1 before those 2, so I've had 3 in total.
What do you look for when you get a squire?
I don't look for anything. It tends to be more the other way around. No, I don't know. I want them to be passionate about fighting. I think that because that's something that I felt was the most important. So when I took my first squire shortly after I had been knighted, or shortly, a couple of years later, then it was very important for me to instill that the only thing I really care about is that you continue fighting. You go to events and you're active and you fight. You don't have to fight with me in wars. You don't have to fight against me. We don't have to practice. It just, you have to be active. And then we separated the relationship when he dropped out, kind of started going to less events because it just didn't fit me then, because that wasn't the relationship I had.
Okay. Okay. What was the difference for you between reigning in Drachenwald and reigning in Aethelmearc?
I think the biggest difference is the amount of people. So Drachenwald is much smaller. On paper, there's a lot of members, but they are all in their region. So if you go somewhere, you will see the people in that region. So therefore, there's less people, which means there is less people to be ladies in waiting or follow you around and escort you. So there's less of that side of the pomp and circumstance. While in Aethelmearc, there's people everywhere and you can drive to events. So the events can be rather big and you have a big retinue and there's much more effort put on the spectacle of it, which I thoroughly enjoy and think we're missing out in Drachenwald to some extent. So yeah, that's the biggest difference, more people.
Okay. So in Drachenwald, though, like my understanding is that there's sort of like a higher standard for authenticity. Is that your understanding?
Yeah, I'd say so. Even a person coming new will often have proper wool and layers and make the hair setups and whatnot. It's immediately going to a higher level, which has drawbacks in the sense that if you're not really crafty as a new person, you don't really fit in immediately. And we don't have vendors to any large extent, so you can't really go and buy your things. Instead, you you build them. I mean, you can buy, but it's not as here. Here it's like vendors are everywhere, so you can buy everything.
Right. So when you were still living in Sweden, how often would you come over to the States for events?
Every year.
Every year?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say at least Pensick every year, and then Estrella every other year or so. I've been to 5 Estrella, I think, in total, so, or 6. So not that many, but some.
Okay. And would you come for like a month, or I mean, would you do other things around the event?
No, I tend to always just go for the events everywhere. So I travel around Europe to events, and I arrive on Friday evening. I stay. Usually our events are Friday to Sunday, so I stay at the event, and then Saturday activities, and then Sunday pack up and go home, and maybe stop and look at a runestone. Oh no, Stonehenge one time and so on, and like one thing maybe, but it's basically just finances and time. Even though in Sweden you have 5-week vacation, so that's pretty nice. But if you need a Monday or a Friday to travel also to get to the event, then suddenly your vacation is eaten up.
Right.
And also 2 weeks for Pensick every year.
Right.
Of course, sucking up some time too.
Yeah. Did you ever come over to Pensick as king?
Yes, a couple of times.
How was that experience as compared to not reigning?
It's not that different. Since you're going to a foreign war, you don't have as much responsibilities, no meetings, nothing like that. So for me, it's a difference because you get a couple of more things to do. But when I went to Pensick as non-royalty, I sometimes went to the war planning meetings and being warlord for Drachenwald and things like that. So I often had those anyway. So not a huge difference, I think. But it's kind of cool though. I mean, they having crown on and walk around and in the market with a couple of retainers is kind of fun. Can't deny that.
One of the things I love about Estrella and Pensick are the pickup fights and being able to pick things up from different people and take it back. Is that one of the things that you used Pensick for, sort of in your fight training?
Yeah, in the beginning, that was very, very much what I was doing. I was doing a lot of pickup fights. In the last 10 years, I have not. So I have had to slow down. I mean, I can't be up all night drinking and do pickups all day and then fight in battles. It's like I have to cut one thing out, so I cut out the pickup fights.
See, the rest of us have cut out the drinking, I think. We get old and we're like, we need to sleep. But anyway, did you have mentors between getting knighted and winning your first crown that helped you get over the hump, kind of thing?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, it wasn't one person, or I mean, if there was one, it would be Prothal was definitely my sparring partner for most of it. But otherwise, it's I tend to learn from everybody. It's like I think everybody has something to give, and so I'm like using everybody in that sense, trying to emulate what I like and what I don't like. I try to stay away from.
Okay. What do you think is the difference between your role as a knight and your role as a duke?
Oh, that was a good question. It's not much, very little difference, I would say. I mean, as both of those roles, you have to be very mindful of making sure that you lift people up and don't push them down, because I think that's one of the most dangerous things we can have is people who have a perceived position of power being jerks, because that's destroying so much, takes away from the position and everything. So and in that regard, I would say as being a duke, I would say that basically I have given up my right to whine. I go into a fight and something happens and I'm not happy, but I'm a duke, so I have to take it. It doesn't matter. If I go into a fight and someone hits me in the face with a basket hilt, I won't complain. I won't say anything, because I will use my position to make sure that there's no upsetness. That's like my mindset, and I might fail at times and be very upset when someone cheats or whatever. But I'd say that's to me is the difference. It's the same thing. It's just a little level higher. That you have to be more mindful and your words carry more weight and so on. But otherwise, it's the same thing because we can't have knights going around being assholes either.
You would think.
Yeah.
But no, you're right. You're totally right. What role does your consort serve for you on tourney day?
Not so much. I know many people are very inspired by their consort. I'm inspired, but not in a way that I feel that they need to do anything for me. It's like they need to be present and engaged in the fighting. I think that's what makes it more interesting for me to fight, is that I have someone who is routing for me, kind of. And that feeling is definitely something the consort can give, and that in my book that I can take in. Because otherwise, when I fight and it's a crown tournament, I have to have my head focused to do good. And so I'm trying to like just put blinders on and ignore everything except for my fights, so I can keep the focus. And that isn't leaning well into having outside input in what I do.
When you moved to the States, did you find that you had to change any part of your fight to be more competitive or to fit into the calibration, or you know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, I would say that in the beginning I was kind of surprised. I had to increase my force, my blows a little bit, but it turned out that it wasn't really, generally speaking. It was just more that there were some people I was meeting who expected more than I gave. So I got surprised at that, because I thought I was hitting good already and it was like a good level. But it turns out that for some people I need to dial it up a little and others not. And I hadn't figured that out. Back in Drachenwald, I mean, I've been around so long that I knew everybody. So like, why check authorization cards? I know every single person fighting. So, and then I'm coming here, it's then I don't know everybody. So I don't know how they react and what they mean to decide that they have lost.
Okay. I just, when you travel, you always run into like just different conventions and different calibration and things that you have to tweak. And I'm just wondering how different it was for you. But you've gone to Pinsic a lot, so probably.
Exactly. It wasn't that much of a difference.
Okay. Were you going to say something else?
No. Good.
Okay. Do you feel the same about knighthood now as you did when you got knighted?
No, I must admit that I when I got knighted, I didn't really have a really good idea of it, or rather what I had as an idea of what a knight was is not really what it is. So now I have understood much more about how the peerages, all of them, serve a role in our society. So that has developed a lot.
If you were to explain to someone what you think the different peerage roles are, since you are four of them, what would you say?
So all of them, every type of peerage has the basic foundation that's the same. It is you're supposed to be that person who, to me, I think the sentence of a pillar of the society is how I think about it. It's like everybody is a big group and everything is going on and happening. There's different events that needs tweaking. Maybe someone needs to be marshal at an event or anything. And the peers are those who are supposed to readily step in and take up roles, and to some extent to be, if nobody else wants to do something, the peers are there to do it. And that I think is general for all of them. And then for each of them there's slight tweak to how they actually operate in real life. Like as a lore, it's a lot about, well, it is the same actually. I mean, you're as a knight, you go out and you try to get people to get better and have fun fighting and do good and be safe. As a lore, you want them to excel in their art, to get better, to go to the right people to ask questions, to learn more and so on. So and Pelican the same thing. If you're mentoring someone or in a situation where you have your Shire is holding a big event and you're a Pelican in that group, you have like a responsibility to keep an eye on things. And even if you're not involved directly in the event, but if suddenly there's no water on site, then and nobody else can fix it, then you go and rent a big truck of water and get there or whatever. I mean, it's just you just fix the things. That's to me is what peers are for.
And your Pelican, you talked about how you were autocrating the crown where you got knighted. Was it for autocrating?
No, I don't know why I was Pelican. I was Kingdom Seneschal for a couple of years, so maybe that was what pushed it over. But I've been Exchequer, I've been Chronicler, and in the Principality, I think it was. I've been Principality Seneschal and Kingdom Seneschal and things. I tend to do a lot of things and know lots of people. So I think that it was some sort of, everything with me is probably that it's just generally good. It's not like you can point at one thing I did super good. It's just.
Yeah. I think that's funny. But are you like the administrative roles that you've taken, the Kingdom Principality offices, is that something that you enjoy, or do you do that because you feel like that's part of your role to give back?
No, I enjoy it. I don't believe that people should take positions of that kind if they don't really want to do it, because then you will end up with someone who is not doing it properly. So I enjoy doing those kind of roles.
Okay.
However, I have realized with multiple periods that it's almost impossible to keep that up. So I'm feeling that I'm slacking on everything, because I can't be involved heavily in the organizational part and involved heavily in art and science and build things and mentor people and be out on the field and fight everybody. So I kind of tried for many years to do everything, and it just doesn't work so well. So I've kind of recently decided that I think I will focus on fighting, because that is what I do first and foremost, and then let the other things fall by the wayside for a while, so I can kind of feel that I do something good instead of trying to do everything and not feel that feeling that I do anything good.
I totally get that. I feel I'm a Pelican too, and I feel like a super bad Pelican because my focus really is fighting, and my service has sort of been fighting related too. But I think it's hard, like when you take the peerage role seriously and you have more than one, to feel like you're living up to the expectation in all of them. I think that's super hard. So I get that. So do you have like a favorite Penzik or Estrella story?
I think my first Penzik had something very funny happened that I carried with me all the time. It was out, I think it was in the woods battle. It was kind of a broken field situation. It must have been in the old woods. We were fighting a little group, and me and the other Drachenwalders were hitting them with our pole. I had a pole arm and I was hitting them, and other people, and nothing happened. They didn't take anything. They just kept fighting. So we kind of backed off and they kind of stood there. So we got a little this separation, and we were very frustrated. Then from the side behind us, we hear some shouting, and then a huge group of people with beards, and they looked older, raggedy armor, some of them, and so on, came, maybe 5 or 6 of them, came running from behind us and attacked our enemy, and they had seen what's going on. So as they pass us, they are basically, "We are the Griffin Guard from the West, we'll help you," something like that. And they go in and they just flatten them. And we're like, "Oh, that's how you do it." It was hilarious.
That is funny. That's super funny. Do you still prefer melee fighting over individual fighting?
Yeah, I very much enjoy being on the field. And I think the biggest advantage to melee to me is that everybody can feel important and do an important job, because even a new person coming in, by just standing in the right spot, they are putting pressure on the enemy, and they have to do something to react back and so on. So while in the tournament field, I mean, if you're in a really good area, I mean, you will go into tournament and be out in 2 rounds every time. How fun is that after a while? Even though you are getting better, it's like everybody else is darn good. So I think that is a big advantage of the melee field, is that everybody can feel important there.
I've never really looked at it that way. That's pretty cool. Do you have a favorite memory from being king in one of your reigns?
No, I mean, there's so many. I don't know. Hey, nothing pops up now that you asked it. I probably have some that.
Okay. So are you going to tell us the story about where you fought for your name?
Well, yeah, I don't know. he might be watching. No. So
I actually fight for him. So.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
So
just tell the story because it's funny.
Yeah. No. So what happened was that I was king in '98, and I needed to register my arms and name because I hadn't done that before, and the king couldn't very well have a not registered name. So I went to Pensick and filed all that paperwork and everything. And when it got back, after a couple of months, I got the response. There was, oh, the name has already been taken. It wasn't that much before, I think. So but since I had applied for a device and that passed, then they had to give me a holding name. So they added of Fatundraland, which is the Shire was Fatundraland that we lived in. So they just added that. So I just kept that because I like it. Okay. So anyway, so that's how I got the name and so on. And then well, of course, I then learned that there was someone else named Sven Gunnarsson. So I was playfully grumpy about that at the Pensicks and things, and had fun with that as a joke and so on. And then at one Pensick or Australia, I don't remember which one it was, then he was there too, and then we had a fight about it. Yeah, he smote me well. I didn't last many seconds.
It's funny because you're both dukes, right? Like it's
I actually think that we reigned the same. The first reign he had was the same as me. The second was the same as me, and the third one too, I think. It's the fourth one I missed. I failed to win, and he won. I think there's something like that. So if you check up the OP, we are like parallel in our two kingdoms.
Well, before you won in Aethelmearc, I mean, you both had reigned as king 5 times too. So I mean, it's kind of funny. Anyway, he's a really good guy. Yeah. So I've heard it from his point of view. I just listened to yours too, so it's pretty funny. Okay, so what is your teaching training philosophy?
Spend time. I think that's the most important thing, is that nobody learns from a drive-by instruction or just move your feet more. It doesn't help. So I think you have to take time, and you have to actually put yourself in their shoes, or spar against them for a while, or do something, watch them fighting, so that you can get that good feeling for what they actually are doing, so you can then tell them what you think they should do better. And personally, I'm very humble, so I definitely don't want to tell anyone how to do it, because I don't believe I know. So if I see them do something that's super stupid, I would point that out. And I would say that I don't understand how you are going to stay alive if you keep doing that thing with your left leg or whatever. So, I mean, I'll phrase it in a way where I try to make them understand that it's not the optimal way for me. But I mean, maybe that's how they have to do it. I don't know.
Okay. So how would you mentor or coach someone to prepare them for a crown?
I would, if I am able to basically lift them up and carry them around and put them in front of different enemies. So back in Drachenwald, I knew everybody, so I could, like, okay, in this crown, you're going to fight that guy, that guy, that guy. So then you should try practice against these 5, because their styles are similar to these guys, and so on, whatever. Here, I don't really know. So I think I would want them to experience different situations against different fighters, where they have someone who is like a bull rushing in. They have to be able to counter that successfully. You have someone who is really good at jumping out of range all the time, so they have to have an idea of how to fight that and so on. So I would try to steer them to the right people to get them to learn more.
Go ahead.
No, I was done.
Okay. Did you train differently for your Aethelmearc crown than you did for Drachenwald crowns?
It's a hard question. I'd say I kind of train the same, because what I do is I try to get into the zone faster, because between the crowns I can kind of slack off a bit, since I don't take it so seriously when I fight. And coming closer to a crown, I have to try to hone my focus ability a bit. So because I don't believe that you can like I can't just learn in a couple of months how to do a new blow. It just doesn't work that way for me. So I have what I have that I learned in the first 5 years. That's basically when I learned stuff. And now what I'm doing is I'm just tweaking how much I do of one thing or another thing, like, depending on who I fight and where I fight them and how I feel that day. So.
Okay. What was I going to ask? What is your favorite tradition in Drachenwald, and what is your favorite tradition in Aethelmearc?
My favorite tradition in Drachenwald is in Finland, we always go to the sauna. After fighting a whole day, eating feast, and then at 9, 10 in the evening, you go and sit in the sauna. That's fantastic.
I've heard about that from Ulf.
But... Yeah, he enjoyed it too. And then in Aethelmearc, I just love the way that there's so much willingness to help out with the crown that I mean, going to events and we need to set up the list or whatever, people are like helping out. There's a lot of helping out feeling here that I really enjoy. I'd say that it's a little less of that in Drachenwald. I would think that the way it is in Drachenwald is that everybody's very good at doing what they're supposed to do. So they're like often doesn't end up being things that needs to be done on the spot so much. And that means that there isn't so much opportunity for people to shine by stepping up and doing that little extra. So that's something I see a lot here. I mean, it doesn't mean that it's poorly planned or anything. It just means that we have a culture where people will step in and do stuff. So you don't have to plan everything to the T and have everything ready. You can just drag out the list to the field and then people will just make it happen. And it's fantastic to see that.
Yeah, definitely. Do you have a goal in the SCA right now, like still?
No, I don't have.
No.
I mean, I want to go to more places. I want to go to the Great Western War. I want to go to Gulf Wars. I've never been there.
Me either. I was supposed to go last spring and I didn't go.
Yeah. We were all planned to go this year and then it didn't happen.
Yeah. So, and Great Western War, I've heard really good things about too. So yeah, that's on my list too.
I would say it's the travel thing. And I want to go to Moscow and see how our Russian brothers are doing. That would be awesome.
That would be super cool. If I had like an event bucket list, what is the one event in Drachenwald and the one event in Aethelmearc you would tell me to go to?
In Drachenwald, I would say go to Double Wars in May, or around May. And in Aethelmearc, and it's not Pensic, I guess. Then I mean, war practice is the biggest, same site as Pensic. So to some extent, it's like cheating because it's the same as Pensic, just smaller. So I perhaps go with we have had very much fun in West Virginia 12th night, silly event in January where there's just crazy things happening and strongman competitions and stuff. It's a really good event.
Oh, that sounds fun. Totally. Okay. Did we not talk about something you would like to talk about?
No. I think we've gone through all the topics.
Okay. Did you bring your sword?
Yes, I brought my stick. I don't know. So this is what I normally have.
Okay. How long is that?
This long. It's so if I stand up, it barely touches the ground at the tip, or just shorter than that.
So and how tall are you?
I'm 5'11".
Okay. And do you have a thrusting tip?
Yes, I have a fluffy thing. Yeah, right now it gets all beaten up very fast. I've had very bad luck with swords the last couple of years. So I make one and I bring it, and after a couple of fighting events, it's gone. So I have to make a new one, and they look ugly immediately. So
that means you're using them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So your basket hilt, that looks like old school, like heavy bar stock. Is that what that is? Yeah,
this is a design we built back home. We started out with these. It's like the clamps you have for exhaust things on exhaust.
Yeah, those
on
clamps.
Car. So we took 2 of those, and then we welded 3 pieces of 14 gauge steel that we had dished a little bit, and then put 1 bar here, and we got basket hilts en masse, and they are super good at sitting on the stick. The problem was that the bolts are sticking up into your wrist when you're getting low. So I started turning them around, and then now I started building all from by myself. So I take 6mm steel rod, and I make the cut the yang. The thing that the bolts have, threading. I thread them myself and so on, and then I weld it together, and I put one piece here so I can really get my hand like parallel to the stick as much as possible. So
how heavy is that? Like,
it's probably a little over a pound.
Okay. Oh, so it's
And
not
I do have a classical plastic hilt too that I use, but I swap between them at times because I can't decide what I want to use. Because with the plastic hilt, you get more of a weight in the front of the stick, so it's a little easier to make oomph. But I lose a little bit of speed with them. So I like the back heavy ones too. The really optimal ones is the ones I try that doesn't have a hilt and instead have a weight in the back and a proper quillion. But I haven't made any gauntlets or found any I can use and feel flexible enough. I just can't. So
I have that same problem. I got some Gretters and I thought that, I mean, they're very good, but they don't give me the flexibility in my wrist that I want.
Yeah.
So I have that problem. I would love to do that. No, somebody's just saying they would like to fight you someday. I'm like, I would too. Pennsic pickups. Okay. So do you do anything special to your handle? It looked pretty big.
You mean the wood part?
Yeah.
I shave it down and like as much of a contour as I can. So I have like it's a little more, I don't know if you can see it.
No, I can't see that. That's cool. And then you have a foam disc.
No, it's a leather piece.
Okay.
It's just because I keep rubbing my hand against the metal otherwise, and it just cuts and bleeds, and it's very annoying. So I made a disc.
No, I think that's a good tip because people don't realize that you can stop your equipment from hurting you. So
it's very interesting. And then I'm a very firm believer in very solid straps because I hate the idea of my sword flying into the audience, which I've seen every year almost, because people say, no, I have a trigger, I don't need a lanyard. And I say, you need a lanyard, okay? And then off goes the sword. And
that lanyard just keeps it on your wrist. It doesn't do anything else.
No, it just sits there. Long enough to not tangle anything.
Okay. So let's do the final 10. You ready?
Yeah.
All right. If you could fight anyone in the world, who would it be?
I really want to fight Duke Radnor again. It was a long time ago. He's probably my hero.
And he fights with a similar style, like the broken lance thing, right? Yeah. Who would you like to see reign in your kingdom?
I mean, that should be an easy question. Anyone for whom it's the first time would be glorious. I think that's fantastic to see people who haven't been king 5 times step up and see what they do out of it. So, I don't have a specific person right now. No.
Okay, that's fine. If you could talk about fighting with anyone in the world for an hour, who would it be?
Oh, I need to talk with Duke Prothal again. He lives in Germany, so I haven't seen him much in the last years. So I really need to have some time with that. So.
Okay, cool. What is your favorite medieval-esque or period movie?
Conan.
Oh, that's a good one. Conan's a good one. If you could add or subtract a rule from the rules of the list, what would it be?
The whole idea that the top of your head is safe against thrusts, which is very common over here, is very annoying because it means that people can kind of do target substitution. And I do not find that humorous at all. So I would probably want to get rid of that and say, if you get poked hard enough that it's the same as a blow, then you should take it. That's,
And the pressure, like the pressure is a smaller spot, right?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, you see them rock back and then they say, no, that was high. And I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, anyway, so that's something I don't like. Something I would like to add, I don't know. Maybe go smaller thrusting tips, maybe, because they're quite substantial size. But I guess, I mean, on swords you can have them low profile, so That's not really an issue anymore. It used to be like a big blob in the front of the stick, and it was just ugly.
And it messed with the way your stick flowed.
Yeah. So. No, I don't have anything with that really.
Okay. What's your favorite tournament format?
Round robin, without a doubt. When you get able to fight everybody, and there's so many fights that you don't have to be out in two. I mean, that's to me brings out the best in you, because you don't have to win everything all the time to still get far in. You can have a couple of losses and you're still among the top 5, and then they choose those for a smaller round robin or something, if that's the format. So round robin, so any sort.
Cool. What's your favorite event?
Penzik.
If you could have any helmet, regardless of cost, what kind would it be?
Oh, helmet. I really want to have Sir Richard's helmet from Palantir. If you've seen those.
Yeah.
They are so fantastic because they're so like rustic. I love those. I tried to buy one, but he was busy and didn't have time, so I had to skip that.
He does such a great aesthetic.
Yeah.
It's Saturday morning at Estrella, and several people want to talk to you about last night. What did you do?
Well, I will of course talk to them and listen to what I did, so I have an idea, because I won't have any idea.
Okay, that's a good answer. Who's your favorite fight ever?
I don't know. Right now, I would think that my squire Magnus back in Sweden is probably the one I have most joy of fighting, because he's so darn good.
Okay, cool. And who's the cleanest fighter in your kingdom? You can pass if you want to.
Yeah, no, but I mean, there's some people that I would like to say the name of, but it just doesn't pop up the name right now. But yeah, I can see in my head how some people are just so good at dealing out blows clean and taking clean that it's just a joy to meet them. But I don't have any.
That's definitely the spirit behind the question.
Yeah. No, so there are people that are just fantastic good at that. And then there are people who barely hit harder than they take, and then it's a mess.
Yes. Yes. Well, thank you so much for talking to me. I really appreciate your time, especially today when you were.
I was running late.
Yeah, running late. So I appreciate all of that. And it's been a pleasure to talk to you. And hopefully we can cross swords, maybe at Golf Wars.
Yeah, maybe. That would be fantastic.
Thanks everyone for joining us. Tomorrow I'm talking to Duke Xerxes from Palantir. So that should be fun. He's young, and I've heard great things. So thanks again. And thanks everyone for joining us, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.